I never thought when we walked into that police station that he would end up being in prison for 17 and a half years now. So this happened to me between the ages of about 12 and 15, and then there was one further event when I was 19. I didn't realise what had happened to me was sexual abuse until probably my late 20s. But I was living on my own then, and I thought, well, my parents wouldn't be able to deal with it if I told them. And I just thought, oh, you're just going to have to take it to the grave with you. When I started looking into what are the effects of being sexually abused as a child, I remember seeing this list of things, and they were like, oh my God, that's I have problems with that and I behave like that sometimes. And that's when I disclosed it to my wife, and then it was about a year later that I decided to come forward to the police.
The Essex Police Quest team deal with non-recent abuse, child abuse, within the family, extended family, or anyone in a position of trust. And the non-recent has to be over a year old.
We ended up at Southend Police Station, and I just put a brief little handwritten note under the counter to the receptionist, and she was really good. She took us straight away into a quiet room round the side. And there is a team that deals with sexual offences there, and a sergeant came down and spoke to us and took some details. Yeah, and then it was passed on to Quest, and then they took it over.
Once they make that phone call or they come into a police station and report it, we can just explain the process. Doesn't mean they have to go ahead with it. I think some people think, oh, the minute I've actually told you, even if we report that crime, record it, doesn't mean you have to go through with it.
I made some notes of all the things I wanted to say, and a diagram of his house and his room where it all happened, and we just kind of ran through those in the interview, and then Emily took those away as evidence afterwards. I think we were probably there for 2 hours in the first interview. So there's no pressure to get it all out. If you reach a point, if someone reaches a point in the interview is I'm done for the day, I can't handle anymore, then that's fine. It's be done at your pace. And you'll probably get asked stuff and you won't be able to remember if it's historic, or you won't know the answer. And that's fine, that's not a slight on you. Just say, well, I can't remember that, or I don't know that. And that's absolutely fine, that's nothing to worry about. But as long as you just say what's happened to you, if you just tell the truth and stick to the truth, then you'll be fine.
I've been on child abuse teams for 13 years now, so you really get to understand the impact it has on people. Working with a lot of victims, you understand the support they need, how important it is to keep them updated. We will always speak to them at least once a month, if not more often, to update them if there's been arrests, interviews, any sort of significant events throughout the investigation. I will always speak straight away to a victim about what support they might need, that there's the ISVA service, independent sexual violence advisors, that are really good, will offer really good support service. They don't want to talk to you about the actual allegation as such, just the impact it's had on you. Just for someone to meet for a coffee, they've got the time to sit and just offer you that support throughout. And they can go through the trial with you, that we can apply to the judge so that the ISVA can actually sit right next to you in court, and some people find that really helpful.
Emily was fantastic. She was always there if you wanted to ask her anything or to speak, and she'd try and keep you updated as best she could. So having your family and having someone, a detective like Emily, fighting your corners, a massive deal, and they're going to get to know everything about what happened to you and your life and why you've come forward. So, and they'll treat you with compassion and dignity, and they'll do their best to look after you and point you in the right direction of support services, because I know how difficult it is going to be for you. And then it was about 18 months it took from coming forward to him being charged. yeah, that was a bigger deal, and I know it was a big deal for the Quest team, because Emily said how pleased they were with the charges that they got, and it turned out that there was more than one person that he'd done this to, so that was a bigger deal.
We've had 100% conviction rate since we've been going, so that's really good. I think a lot of people think, well, how can you get a conviction for something that is historic, that's non-recent? Because we don't have the live evidence like the forensics or the CCTV, for example. But there are a lot of ways of getting evidence that people don't think about. So you might just think, oh, well, there's no evidence, I've never told anyone. But actually, once we then start getting that account from the victim, we can then figure out that actually we might be able to go back to some records and get some evidence to back up one part of the account they've given us. And that might just be enough to tip the balance for it to be a successful prosecution.
I'd definitely say I never thought when we walked into that police station that he would end up being in prison for 17 and a half years now. That was way off the radar. But I think that's a good approach to have. Keep your expectation levels low, but know that you are going to have an effect on the person's life. Even if all that happens is someone from Quest goes and interviews them, then as far as they're concerned, the cat's out of the bag, isn't it? Their dirty little secret that they've got isn't a secret anymore. It is only now, a few months down the line after he's been put in prison, that you kind of realise how much of an effect the process of coming forward and waiting for a trial and trial had on you, that burden lifted from you. Even if it doesn't go to trial, even if all that happens is he gets interviewed, it might stop him doing it to one more person. And if that's all that happens, then you have achieved something.
If child sexual abuse has happened to you, then I would urge you to come forward. Do call us. We will work with you and we will support you and we will try and get justice for you.
I've got to go. I've got a big carrot from school.
Well, I thought you'd come in mine for a bit.
Well, I would, but I don't want to be late. Sorry.
Alright, well.
You did what? We've been going out for ages now. Everybody does it. And I trust him.
I won't call 2 months ages. He didn't screenshot it, did he?
Oh, yeah, but I trust him.
What if someone else sees it?
They won't. He's not like that.
Katie, phone, now. Don't want to see what's on that, miss.
No, miss, I'll put it away.
Phone. Bye, miss. Don't want to see it again, Jess. And Katie, stay behind, please.
Okay.
I'm fed up with you concentrating more on your phone than your work. You're not going to get the grades if you keep concentrating on this. Don't want to see it again.
You alright? Do you want to get a card? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Katie, I think this is getting to the wrong phone.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even notice.
Saw that text, by the way. Have fun tonight. See you later.
What? Why would you send me that in school? Anyone could have seen
I
it.
was only joking.
And you screenshotted it. I thought I could trust you. You are such an idiot.
Katie, come on.
Delete it and delete it now in front of me so I can see it's gone.
Sophie's on my phone. She's calling her mum. She hasn't got any minutes left. Katie, come on. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have screenshotted it.
Guys, we shouldn't be looking at this. Stop, it's funny. Jess, it's not funny.
What are you doing?
It's just a picture, calm down.
Just a picture. That's my girlfriend, Jess.
It's not a big deal. Guys, stop.
Jess.
Dan, what's going on?
No, it's okay. Guys, just stop.
What? Two can play that game.
Guys, what's going on? Right, all of you, calm down, come with me now. All of you.
Can your small package not get through there?
My mum's gonna see it.
Pee-wee!
What will she think?
Tony Becker.
Teachers are gonna contact the police. What will my friends think? What am I gonna do?
Very quickly into the investigation into the attempted murder and rape of the young woman at the bus stop behind me, we obtained a DNA profile that we strongly believe belongs to the offender in this case. Working on the advice and experience of some offender profilers, from some very expert profilers from the National Crime Agency, we've started an operation, an exercise within the local area in Beeston, obtaining the DNA from people who live within the local area, who reside within a certain radius of the crime scene, and we're asking people, men between the ages of 18 and 30 who generally fit the description of our offender, to provide us with a DNA sample, because that will be absolutely crucial and vital to proving the guilt of someone in this offence. So I'm asking for the cooperation of everybody in Beeston, whom we come and see. We would knock on your door and explain what's happening, and we'd ask for your cooperation in that regard. So we've been speaking to a large number of people within the local area. So far we've visited about 1,100 addresses. We've seen somewhere in the region of 3,000 people, and we've taken up to 300 DNA samples from young men, and we've had a really fantastic response from the public to help us with the investigation. What we're also releasing to the press now is an image of a pair of trainers, a Nike pair of trainers, which we believe the offender may have been wearing on the night in question, and that's been brought about by a footwear mark that we've managed to obtain from the clothing worn by the victim on the night of the offence. And I'd ask people to have a look at those images of those trainers and see if those images remind you of the footwear belonging to anybody that you know who you believe might be the person who matches the description of our offender. We're also this weekend, we're going to be in the central Leeds area and all around Beeston and the Burley area of Leeds with some mobile screens reminding people of the images of the offender in this case. And likewise, if you visit Millennium Square in Leeds, you'll also see those images on the big screen there as well. So I'd ask people to have a look at those images, and again, please don't be concerned about dobbing in or grassing up somebody that you think might be responsible. The science and the technology behind the DNA is so great now that we can easily disassociate someone within hours if their DNA sample doesn't fit. And that DNA sample means that we don't have to concern ourselves with interviewing and questioning large volumes of people about where they were at the time, because we can quickly eliminate those people from the investigation. So please don't concern yourself about this. This is an open and transparent operation by West Yorkshire Police to catch somebody who is a great threat to the general public and to young women in particular.
We went from a happy, easygoing family to absolute torment.
I just thought she was being a typical teenager.
I became very angry.
She was just getting worse and worse, and I just thought something's not right here. Tried to discuss it with her and she'd get really defensive.
Her behaviour was so erratic and aggressive physically. Her emotions were all over the place and I didn't know what was going on.
We just thought she was just going out with friends, but then her attitude started to change, her appearance started to change. She constantly had a mobile phone in her hand, wouldn't let go of it, even took it to the bathroom.
She was targeted from the inside by a girl who became a friend, who came to our house to eat and sleep, who basically got paid for passing children on.
We actually had a visit from the police who told us something to do with one of her other friends that had gone missing, and they'd asked who my daughter had been with, and she told them, and they said, these men are possible groomers. I was so naive, I didn't even know what a groomer was.
I think it were really when late night phone calls started that my had started turning into something more than a regular teenage years.
People are ringing her on the phone. She's been agitated. It got to a stage where she begged me to take her out of the school she was attending because she was scared for her life.
When men started coming in, that made me start thinking that there was something more serious, shall we say, going on.
And I thought, where's that come from? You know, you must have got that from somebody, you know. And she's saying, you can't keep me locked up and things like that. And I'm entitled to see who I want to see.
If that phone rang, it didn't matter if it rang at 9 o'clock, at 12 o'clock or at 3 o'clock in the morning. If that phone rang, she responded to it. I commented to somebody that it was like she'd been hypnotised.
We used to get tears and she used to say, you don't understand, I have to go out, I have to go out. And she used to stress that all the time, and her phone would be constantly receiving text messages, I should say every 5 minutes. Her phone would just alerting another text, another text, another text. And she'd look at it secretively and then hide it again in her hand.
For a parent that's going through it, every day is like a nightmare.
We used to receive phone calls from these men saying to tell my daughter to go out of the house. If she didn't, sometimes they'd threaten to gang rape me in front of my son, my husband and my daughter. My message to other parents across West Yorkshire would be just listen, that's, communicate, Don't give up, never stop fighting. You know.
Don't wait. If you suspect anything, and as I've already said, I didn't suspect sexual exploitation in first instance. It was the last thing on my mind.
Be vigilant on the computers and on the telephone, on the mobile phone.
When it gets really tough, just hang on in there, contact the organisations, keep diaries, contact the police on a regular basis as we had to do.
And the more you pull your daughter or your son, in some cases, the better it is for parents, because they don't like parents that actually get involved. They prefer the children that are allowed to go out and the parents not knowing where they are.
We have changes, and if them changes are enough to make me be thinking that actually something's wrong, report it. Not just to somebody, but to everybody.
You get sexually exploited because you have to plug food. That's something that has to stop. Plugging is when kids take food or drugs, or even money sometimes, and wrap it up with cling film and put it up their arse, just to avoid getting nicked. That itself is just a traumatizing feeling. They must be going through a lot. When you've got kids running around with cling film, they're definitely using it to plug food. There's certain smells as well that you can pick up from that you know something's been plugged. There's that odour. So obviously from when you're plugging, you're going to start smelling, of course. It's a sort of sexual activity. You start sweating anyway, so that's another thing you pick up on. Probably sometimes you see it in your own toilets, where you're seeing cling film in a toilet. They're going to use Vaseline, they're going to use it. Anything to make the process easier. They're going to use gloves, then gloves it is. So you're going to be plugging all that food for someone else, going up and down Conch when he's sitting at home relaxing, chilling. That happens, that's what you're going to expect as well. So you got to expect not getting paid for months. You got to expect not even seeing your peoples for a whole few months. That you're just stuck in a Conch store. You can't eat the right food, you're just eating bare takeaway. There's a lot of things you're putting yourself up for. That itself is just traumatizing.
There was a group of us that were altar boys. We were from a Catholic school, we were quite religious people, and then the football team was set up kind of on the back of that. It started where he obviously groomed me, and he told me a story for about a year or two when he was dropping us off from football, and he'd always make sure that he dropped me off last, even though I lived quite close to where we used to train for the football. And he just told me this story, and it's like just completely groomed me and duped me completely and utterly. He'd brainwashed me by the end of that period. It progressed from that story to, like I said, bit by bit. He was kind of like telling you a little bit more, and then it went to he started abusing me, you know, and he started wanted to do things to me and vice versa, you know. I think I was about 9, around about at the time, and I have an 8-year-old child myself. And when I look at her now and think, my God, when people do something like that, it's just horrendous. It was getting worse and worse, and I couldn't handle it, and I couldn't deal with it. I was so frightened. I just didn't know what to do. It's affected my life really badly. You know, it's made me make wrong decisions time and time again. I couldn't be loved, I couldn't love people, I couldn't have a relationship with my parents. It was just so messed up, so messed up. And it's only now, the fact that it's come out and we've had the court case and stuff like that, and I've brought my anonymity to speak to people, because it's really, really, really important that anybody that has been affected in any way, shape or form about anything along these lines, they need to come forward, because there's a massive support network there from the police and charities like Sporting Chance that are developed around the police for this reason.
When did you start going on school trips?
No comment.
Do you remember your first school trip?
No comment.
Do you remember your last school trip?
No comment.
Did you always go the same places on these trips?
No comment.
What type of trips were they?
No comment.
What type of ages were the boys who went on these trips?
No comment.
Were they all from the same year?
No comment.
When did you leave the school?
No comment.
Do you remember leaving school?
No comment.
Why did you leave the school?
No comment.
When did you get into television?
No comment.
How did that happen?
No comment.
So I've just the page I've gone to. I've opened it randomly. It's April 1969. It starts at 13th. Okay. 13th to the 19th of April 1969. Is that your handwriting there?
No comment.
Okay. After lunch, we went to a quarry on Blackford Hill.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. At 5 p.m. we left for home. I met everyone at
Deacons?
Deacons,
I don't know anyone called Deacon, but...
that evening, and at 10 p.m. we went to...
Oh, God, my writing is dreadful. Black something in 2 cars.
Okay. So that is your writing then? That is your writing in the diary?
No comment.
And then there's an asterisk just to the left.
Yeah,
of that.
panic attack.
Sorry, panic attack.
Yeah. This is hard, I can tell this.
It's your interview, Fred, and if you want to tell
I
me
used to have
that...
panic attacks when I was a kid. Still have them occasionally. And somebody said you should note when it occurs in case it's caused by something you eat.
Okay.
So, I don't do it now, really. I still get panic attacks, I assure you.
All right.
What happened? Anyway, so what I did was used to write down if it happened. Not right, I used to put a little star if I had a panic attack that day. And in there, I couldn't find any correlation. Somebody said cheese brings them on, but it didn't.
Now, earlier in the interview, Fred, you've mentioned to me about panic attacks, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you did. You did because you told me that. You've not got no comment to that. So you did tell me about those panic attacks, okay? And then you've told me about the asterisks, and you said those asterisks mean panic attacks. That's correct, isn't it?
No comment.
Okay. Right, well, I think those asterisks don't mean panic attacks at all. I think those asterisks mean every time you've had sex.
No comment.
Anything to say about that?
No comment.
I don't think the panic attacks at all. I think they're to be when you've had sex with somebody.
No comment.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Harrison. I'm the Superintendent in charge of policing for Derby City, Erewash and South Derbyshire. I just wanted to take a few moments this morning to speak to you around the investigation in relation to the attempted murder and serious sexual offence in Ilkeston November last year. I'm stood outside St Mary's Wharf Police Station. A man is in custody inside the police station. He was charged last night and he'll appear before the court this morning. I just wanted to say a few words to thank and to speak to people in the community about this investigation. I've given 4 or 5 appeals asking for the public's help in relation to this investigation, and I really just wanted to take this opportunity to give my absolute heartfelt thanks to the community of Ilkeston, to the public, for their support within this investigation. You know, we asked for their help and they gave their help, and I just personally wanted to give those words of thanks. Really positive about the work you've done and how you've worked with the officers out there. I also want to take the opportunity to commend the victim. She has been incredibly brave. Her bravery, hasn't gone unnoticed. She's supported the investigation and worked with the officers to get us in the position we're in today. And lastly, I wanted to thank the officers and staff that have worked on this inquiry. 4.5 months of resilience, of perseverance, following up and working on the inquiry. So that's all really I wanted to say. You know, it's been an involved inquiry. Don't want to talk any more around that, but I want to say thank you to all of those people involved. From me, Tracy Harrison, I asked for your help and you gave it. Thank you very much.
I'm arresting you on suspicion of offence of rape for offences dated between June 96 and September 98 in towns of Nuneaton in Warwickshire and Birmingham in West Midlands. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your offence if you don't mention one question, something which you later rely in court. And if you do say, you may be given evidence. Do you understand?
Philip Blackwell as part of an investigation run by Warwickshire Police and West Midlands Police in the late 1990s has been sentenced for a series of rapes and sexual offences. Blackwell is a very dangerous man who subjected his victims to prolonged, serious, violent sexual assaults after specifically targeting lone females near isolated locations within the Nuneaton and the South Birmingham areas. His arrest follows a further allegation of rape made to Devon and Cornwall Police in 2019, when Blackwell's DNA sample was taken and matched to those obtained from the horrific offences committed in 1996 and 1998. Throughout this investigation, our thoughts have very much remained with his victims, who were subjected to horrific attacks during which they would have been terrified. One of the victims has described living under a dark cloud for over 20 years and only now feeling that she can start to rebuild her life. It's a direct result of the bravery and courage of all of his victims having the confidence to come forward, the advances in DNA technology and the tireless work and thoroughness of the investigations that have forced Blackwell to face his past and now be behind bars. I sincerely hope that seeing Blackwell being sentenced today will allow those who suffered at his hands to receive some comfort and be able to move on with their lives knowing he has eventually faced justice, and provide some confidence to victims of any sexual assaults, however long ago they may have occurred, to report them knowing that we will investigate them and provide the necessary support.
A girl scared for her life, a girl living in fear, a girl who became paranoid, self-loathing and had zero confidence, a girl who was tormented by dark thoughts, a girl who couldn't look back at the person in the mirror, a girl whose soul had gone, a girl who cried alone, a girl seeking answers. I am this girl. 18 years of age at the time and just starting out in life. The past 22 years have by no means been easy. This changed me forever. To know that this man has done what he did to so many over the years sends sickness to the core. His brutal acts forever replayed in his victims' minds. shattering people into tiny pieces and having to learn how to fix yourself back together as best you can while living with the demons in your own head. Painting on your smile so not to let the world know you silently cry rivers behind closed doors. Mourning the loss of the person you once were and not wanting those closest to you hurt anymore by seeing you hurt. What if I didn't walk home that night? Why me? Always questions, but never the answers. Until now. I'm still processing it all, as I honestly thought I would never see this day. But my God, I'm so thankful I have. Maybe now myself and all of the victims can finally get some kind of peace in our lives and start our next chapter, free of the dark cloud that was always looming over us. We finally have answers.
The evening of the 26th of June 2005 has certainly had a life-changing effect on my life. The day for me began just like any other, and yet it ended very close to destroying me. And I've relived every detail of it in my mind many thousands of times, and I'm still learning to cope with it even today. The build-up to the rape began about 4 months before, and a man I'd got to know initially through my place of work. He gained my trust, and we built up a friendship. And having many interests in common, we'd meet 2 or 3 times a week, and spent long periods discussing these interests at length over a drink. But there was never an indication of any sexual interest from either party. He was a very well-educated, well-spoken man in his mid-40s, and by his well-dressed designer appearance, he certainly gave me the impression of being successful in his job too. He was a very affable guy with a great personality and sense of humour, and he enjoyed life. He travelled extensively and had a great knowledge of many places, so it made him very good company to spend time and socialise with. So never on any of these occasions did I feel threatened or comfortable with him at all, or to suspect his motives. The reason he supposedly came into my hotel that very first time we met was to purchase some cigarettes, and yet I never realised until after the assault that in all the subsequent times we met for a drink, I never once saw him smoking. And for me, for most smokers, the two things go hand in hand. So maybe that was his way of making that initial contact with me. And later that evening, I made a very rare visit into town to join some friends who were celebrating a birthday. So I had a couple of drinks with them before they left for a nightclub. And I was finishing my drink and was more than a little surprised to feel a tap on my shoulder and find that man from the hotel smiling at me and asking if I'd join him for a drink. So I accepted, and we chatted for about 40 minutes before I went home. We arranged to meet again later the following week. So I asked him if he wanted to swap mobile numbers, but he declined, saying that most of his friends travelled up north like he did, but they condensed their working weeks into 3 or 4 days, and so they worked quite late into the evenings to compensate for the time. So he always switched his mobile off when he left the office at 5ish, so that he wasn't disturbed with work calls all evening. and this was something that I used to do in my previous job, so I could totally relate to that and didn't question it at all. With each of our meetings taking up to 2 hours or more, the conversation always flowed freely, although some of his answers to my questions were in hindsight a little evasive, but never wanting to appear rude or intrusive, I never pursued those points. On Sunday the 26th, he called into the hotel in the morning to cancel our evening out, due to him having worked most of the weekends, tying up the loose ends of his soon-to-end contract, and being very tired. So I suggested that instead of going out, he might like to come to my home for a takeaway and a few beers, and just chill and relax for a few hours. And having known him for 4 months, I had no doubts at all about inviting him to my home, as I considered him to be a good friend after all that time, and I didn't give it a second thought. He found this to be a very acceptable idea, and little did I realise that my own hospitality was playing right into his hands. He duly arrived on time, parking his car around the corner out of my sight. So I poured his beer and my Coke, and we settled down to watch a film. A short while later I topped our drinks up, and I went to look for the takeaway menus. It took me a while to find them all, so I did my best to keep the conversation going from the kitchen, before returning to the lounge and continuing with the film. And I very soon began to feel unwell. But I didn't say anything initially, as I didn't want to spoil a very pleasant evening. But the sickly feeling rapidly intensified, which alarmed me. So I had to say something. And I said to him that I might need to call a doctor or visit casualty. And he very calmly looked me straight in the eye, and he told me to relax and not to fight it. And panic immediately set in, as I realised he'd drugged my drink whilst I was in the kitchen, and I foolishly and naively thought he was going to rob me, as I'd left my wallet and a very expensive wristwatch on top of the fridge. I tried to leave the room to make my way to the front door to call for help, but I lost consciousness and didn't make it. I couldn't tell you how long I was unconscious, but the sickly feeling and the total confusion as I slowly came to were unbelievable. The acute headache and the total panic of not knowing if he was still in my home just added to my turmoil. But the one thing I was totally sure of was I'd been raped. Because the pain of that, I can assure you, was excruciating. I sat for many hours in a stunned, semi-naked state, exactly where he'd left me, totally unable to fully comprehend what had really happened, and time just seemed to stand still. I just couldn't take in how someone I'd got to know so well and considered a good friend and had spent so much time with could even contemplate carrying out such a vile act, never mind actually going through with it. Prior to being raped. I was a friendly, trusting, easygoing guy, always willing to help others and do them a good turn. I was an open book, and if asked a question, no matter how personal and probing, I'd always answer, as I worked on the principle that if you can't cope with my answer, then don't ask the question. But my whole persona was to change rapidly after the 26th, as I now carried an enormous secret, and the stigma of rape weighs incredibly heavily on your shoulders. I felt for a long time that I was the only man in the world to be raped, even though the rational part of my brain told me I wasn't. And the shame I felt was an incredibly heavy burden to carry. As being a male, I felt everybody would have expected me to have fought him off and defended myself, even though he drugged me and I lost consciousness. I still find it difficult 5 years on to cope with what he's done, and I still blame myself for putting myself at risk and being so trusting. But hindsight is a wonderful thing, and rape carries such a huge amount of guilt, shame and self-blame. And accepting that the 4 months we'd been friends was no more than his grooming period is really hard for me to accept. And I just can't help but blame myself. You know, I've never considered my lifestyle to be putting myself at a high risk, as I very rarely drink to excess. I don't do drugs, and at my age I've long since given up clubbing till 5 or 6 in the morning. But I was wrong to be so trusting, and it's happened now and I have to live with it. But I'm not sure I'll ever totally trust anybody anymore, and I'll certainly never ever leave my drink unguarded or out of my sight again.
I was more traumatised by the way the police dealt with me than what actually happened, and would never go to them for help again. And I am more afraid of the police than being raped again. How does that make you feel to read statements like this?
Horrified. That's it. But the strength of the comments within that report did surprise me, actually.
Okay. Because for us, it was absolutely not surprising, as it was to read this. Everything that's in the survey, we knew.
Bridge!
Yeah.
I put some clothes on. Give me a second. Right, sit down for me.
Just clear downstairs,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure,
somewhere
yeah,
for him
take
to go.
And she said to me, for goodness sake, let's just get this out of the way, and dragged me in the bedroom where the beds were separate. They had a metal ending over the end of each bed. He tied me to the bed with my wrists, bent me over the bed, and he anally raped me 13 times, and then left me there, tied to the bed for about a day and a half. Is left over from the rape and the after effects have left me disabled, which, to look at me on the outside, you wouldn't think I was disabled, but I have 4 discs in my spine that are cracked. Half of my spine is titanium, and I've now had a spinal cord stimulator inserted in my spine to try and alleviate the pain. What was going through my mind was, first thing was, what had I done wrong? Why had he wanted to do this to me? What was he trying to prove by doing this? So I contacted my mother, who took me down to her doctor, and he looked at my body and my bruises and said to me, you have to report this to the police. And I said, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I'm too ashamed. And he said, well, the injuries you have and you've sustained are so bad, especially your back, you're going to need to have them looked at and scans done. And I said, I can't do it. If I have reported my injuries to the hospital as soon as I've been raped, then I wouldn't be in the state that I was now. I'll be basically a lot better off. So the first thing I did wrong was not reporting the rape. The second thing I did was not seeking medical attention for my injury. If I had that, if you have been raped at any time, that if you can't face going to the police, then at least go to A&E and ask for swabs to be taken because they can, and have your injuries looked at, because you never know what injury you have got and how much in the future you're going to realise how difficult it is to solve that problem.
Under arrest on suspicion of rape, okay?
Suspicion of rape.
On the suspicion of rape. You do not have to say anything but may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence. Okay, the reason why, at the moment, you match the description of an image that's been sent to us that I believe might be yourself, my friend, okay? A female's been raped just down the road from here. The allegation has been made and someone matching your description has been brought to our attention, okay?
Okay.
My colleague will sit
Mind your
beside
head, mate, as you get in, yeah?
Yeah, go on, if you just sit there to the right of them.
Top man.
My name is Elena and I grew up in Romania in the countryside. In the small villages, there are few jobs and no money. So when a man arrives and offers presents to women and promising them a better life, it's very hard to say no. Often, they follow him to Bucharest and on to other places in Europe. By then, things are expensive and he will ask her, "I need you to earn some money." With no skills and languages, the women end up in sex work. Sometimes, at the beginning, things aren't that bad, but with time there are more and more clients who force them into unprotected sex and abuse in filthy bedrooms. They might make even £1,000 a week, but all the money goes to the man who is running the show. Oftentimes, a woman has nowhere to turn nor medical care. She doesn't even have normal clothes but only underwear for sex work. They are often so ashamed of what they have become, and they are too beaten down to find help and escape. They have nothing to live for anymore. They are coerced and controlled. If you are worried and you suspect this is going on, please call the Modern Slavery Helpline or the local police. No one should ever be made to feel this way just for seeking a better life. My name is Elena. I have never been trafficked or exploited, but many women in my country have.
I was 14 years old and I met him through a friend outside a children's home. He made me feel special. He made me feel like he cared for me. He was never violent. He was caring and loving. He used alcohol. We used to get drunk quite a lot and smoke cannabis, but he would never drink himself, but he would smoke cannabis. I was 14 years old. I didn't have any money. He always had money. He would buy the drink. He would buy the drugs. It was a few months down the line. There would be parties at his, and there would be other men there. There would be dancing, and his friends would get a bit touchy, and I'd look to him to say, stop it. Then he would come up to me and say, come on, if you love me, come on, make them happy. At first, I generally didn't want to do it, but I'd get so drunk, I don't think I knew what was going on sometimes. And I loved him. I wanted to make him happy. I didn't regard it as abuse back then. I thought he loved me. I originally went forward about the first case, but I got scared and I dropped out. And the police approached me again about Tilal, and because I have children of my own, I thought it was the right thing to do. It makes my skin crawl that I saw him, a picture of him when I had to, do the face recognition thing, and it made me feel sick. Well, it's not your fault, and you should come forward and talk because there are people now that will do something about it. Back then, it happened a lot and nothing was done, but now it's all going to change. I'm closer with my family more than ever now, but I don't have a lot of friends. I don't trust anyone. I'll never be able to have a normal relationship again. I can't be with anyone. I've tried and I just can't. I'm just happy with my children now.
Finger settled, situated Sandham Road.
Near side indication, the vehicle appears to have been stung. The vehicle has been stung, it is pulling over, stand by.
6 is yourself.
Hi Lucy, you look nice.
Oh, thanks.
What are you doing tonight?
Homework. You?
I'm sure I would have noticed you if I'd have seen you.
Send me another picture. I want to see if I recognise you.
I bet you've already got a boyfriend, haven't you?
No, waiting for someone decent.
You mentioned you like horror movies. We could go to the pictures sometime.
Yeah, I'll have to check with my mum, but sounds good.
Surely you don't need your mum's permission. I thought you liked me.
No, it's not that. I do like you.
How about Friday then?
Yeah, okay, let me know. Where shall we meet?
Jump out! Jump out! Can you hold it? Cheers, mate.
Right, you're under arrest for failing to stop. You do have to stay home. It's sensitive to do. You know, to rely on your court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.